quiet, numbskulls. I'm broadcasting.
Can we get serious now?
One thing that did happen during the 60s was some music of an unusual or experimental nature did get recorded and did get released. Now look at who the executives were in those companies at those times. Not hip young guys. These were cigar-chomping old guys who looked at the product that came and said, I don't know. Who knows what it is? Record it, stick it out. If it sells, all right. We were better off with those guys than we are now with the supposedly hip young executives who are making the decisions of what people should see and hear in the marketplace.
Success in the music business begins with a dream, a vision. This podcast will give you, the listener, the insight and tools to turn that vision into a reality. Meet the industry professionals who work day by day behind the scenes, helping to make those dreams come true. Welcome to the business side of music.
In the studio with us today is David Martin and Pat Graves of Mutual Groove. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us, Bob.
Glad you could be here. You know, I was looking over your notes, some history here, not only songwriters, producers, engineers, professional acrobat, at least one of you. And I want to talk a little bit about the Flip-A-Day program or the Flip-A-Day project, because I think that's something that's very unique out there. But let's talk about basically how you guys, first of all, how did you guys meet?
The story. Well,
there was a man called Brady.
Yeah. My dad had ended up moving across the street from David's house, from David's, wherever David was living, going into my senior year of high school. And that year, we played volleyball together. And I was just, high energy, acrobat. And I had a lot of agility and stuff. So I was like, I played some beach volleyball with some boys over the summer. I'll try out for the volleyball team. His dad was the coach. And so I tried out, and I think Jamie, his dad, gave me the spot on the team because he kind of felt bad, if he were to cut me.
Yeah, they're like, we got to put the neighbor on there. We're gonna hear about it.
And so through that, I literally played one play that entire season. Got a yellow card for doing a backflip. And
but you trained for that moment.
Yeah, that was my moment. That was my moment for volleyball. And just through the team experience, I learned that David had played drums, and I was an avid bass player. And it wasn't until later that year, as after I graduated high school, I was playing with a great friend of mine who ended up being the guitar player for Wings of Apollo, our first band. We were just jamming at my dad's house, and we were like, man, wouldn't it be great to play with a drummer? So I look across the street, and just so happens that David was walking his, our neighbor's dogs. And I was like, well, there's a drummer. And so I opened the door, and I was like, hey, David. And we never hung out besides that, we
just knew each other from the team, but he's a couple years older than me. So
yeah. And so I was like, hey, David, you want to jam? He kind of looks over. He's like, yeah, let me walk these dogs. Come over in 15 minutes.
I'm like, whoa, this is kind of cool. These older cool kids want to hang out with me. I gotta go, put on some cologne or something.
You were
get rid of the dog.
Yeah, get rid of the dogs.
He was getting ready to start his junior year in high school, and I was going into my sophomore year in college. Or no, you were getting ready to start your senior year in high school. Mm-hmm. I was going into my sophomore year of college, and so was Jesse, the guitar player. Jesse and I rolled over, and I've been playing drums with David ever since. That was 11 years ago.
That was 11 years ago, yeah. And this is in Virginia, Northern Virginia. So right outside of Fairfax. But yeah, ever since that first jam we had, it was just like magic. And then we started the band that night.
This was Wings of Apollo that you started?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
How long did that go?
Almost 8 years.
Yeah.
It was like 7.5 years.
And it was kind of like a long distance relationship of a band because we were all at separate colleges. So it was one of those things where we'd come back and play like 1 or 2 shows a year, like one in the summer and one on Christmas break.
Right.
So it was kind of cool. We would send ideas back and forth via email to our colleges and kind of talk and do all that. But yeah.
Yeah, over those years, though, we did find an actually pretty good stride. Even though we were all separated, it allowed us to, work on our own craft. So that when we got back together, it was like Captain Planet. All of our powers combined, and next thing you know, we're all on another level. So that was really cool.
Go Power Rangers.
Yeah, yes. Oh yeah.
So what brought you to Nashville?
Music.
Yeah, music. The band, Jesse, the guitar player that was in Wings of Apollo, as well as the lead singer, he had an opportunity to come down with a girl he was dating to Nashville.
It's always the girl.
It's always the girl brings
man.
him. And he was down there, and he didn't realize that the rock scene was kind of popping off. There was like the Kings of Leon and Black Keys
were moving, and
Jack
White.
Yeah, White Stripes
So
kind of deal.
he had this amazing experience and came back and was like, guys, like rock music is on the verge of exploding in Nashville. And we're like, what are you talking about, dude? Like country music? I don't want to move to Nashville.
Yeah, do I have to wear a cowboy hat?
Yeah, I was like, that's not me. That's like the one genre of music I don't listen to.
Yeah, literally, like the only genre.
He told us it was amazing. We went down to check it out, and we fell in love.
I think a lot of people don't realize, it's not just country music. Nashville's
Right.
been known for country music or gospel music, Southern gospel, but there is that burgeoning rock scene. Just like, there's a jazz scene that's slowly starting to bubble a little bit here. So yeah, I think when you think of Nashville, you don't think of Jack White or Kings of Leon or whoever else, but they're here, and it's starting to really take a strong foothold.
Yeah, and I mean, even stuff like reggae. I mean, Roots of a Rebellion, the best reggae band I've seen with my own two eyes, they're from Nashville. It's just really interesting to see all the different
It's very diverse.
communities. There's a lot of different music circles around here.
I want to talk a little bit about how you guys started developing your sound, because you have a project, got some music that we're going to play. How did you guys work on? I mean, was it kind of a syncopation of the two of you, if that's a word, syncopation?
Oh, yeah.
Is that something where you got together and, I mean, was it mutual interest or mutual admiration? What kind of took you in that direction?
We've always had the same kind of ear. We've always wanted to hear the same kind of things. Over the years, we've gotten each other into different bands that, like, for example, I was like really into Incubus. And when we first started the band, he was like, oh, well, I'd heard some songs on the radio. They're pretty cool. And I was like, dude, dive in. So he dove in, and the next thing you know, they're like one of his favorite bands. And so we've always kind of just tossed back and forth musical inspirations. And because of that, it's really become like an amalgamation of all sorts of genres that we really try to create our own sound with.
And we wrote a lot via jamming. Like we were in our heyday, like of the Chili Peppers Stadium Arcadium era, when they would go out and they would have their intro jams and they would do a lot of freestyle jams, and that's what we got our fire from. Like we
That's
would write
essentially how
all
we
of our
write,
music
too.
from jamming.
So that was your influence when you guys got started?
Tremendously, yeah. It was funny because when we started in Wings of Apollo, I wasn't even listening to Red Hot Chili Peppers. Like, oh yeah, they're cool. I know Flea's an awesome bass player and everyone's great.
Very
and then,
stylish on stage.
Yeah, exactly. And then dove into how musically talented they all really are, especially when they were with John Frusciante, on guitar. Seeing their intro jams and just how they were able to create magic on the spot was what really fired us up to be able to actually just play and not sit down and be like, well, I can only play what I've written or what I've learned.
Right.
Just making stuff up on the spot. Led Zeppelin, big influence for us there too.
I noticed that too when my wife and I will go to different music events here in town. We'll get invited to go see a band perform. And, there's always 4 or 5 bands on the bill. And so you're always introduced to new music. And I loved the fact of these bands that get on stage and really playing their own original music introduce you to something that you haven't heard of yet. And I think that's so cool. That what that says to me is there's so much musically that can still be done that hasn't been accomplished yet.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're bringing beats into this, and so you have a little bit of different dynamic with it. Let's talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, well, after Wings of Apollo broke up, I really started getting into music production and started getting the DAW.
Was that something that you always had an interest in?
I kind of had an interest in it, but Jesse, the singer, kind of always produced our music and kind of took that role, and I was always just, focused on the drumming. I've always had an ear for music as a whole, and so I took advantage of it and created my own little business called DMart Music, and I got all the equipment I needed to, and I just fell in love with it, and then we just started bouncing ideas back and forth with this project.
Was there more than one thing that seemed to influence you when you were doing your music, or did you hear the songs in your head as you were creating the beats? Or
Yeah, I'd usually start with like a drum groove, and I would always just I would just love building off of that, just building loops and then turning them into songs. And then his bass lines were always just so fun to add over my drum grooves. And then like It's crazy. If you have good drum and bass or lively drum and bass, you can build anything on that. It's such a great foundation. And that's kind of the foundation of Mutual Groove and why we create it. We're like, man, if we can lay this bed and of music, this drum and bass, like anybody can add over it. And we're in Music City. So it's like there's so many people that need that. And that's like basically how we came up with Mutual Groove. We're like, let's just be Nashville's rhythm section.
What a cool idea. We're going to take a little break, get a word in for our sponsor. When we come back, we're going to get into, obviously, the music of Mutual Groove. And as we go out here, is there a particular song or that you'd like to start with that we can play as we go into the break?
Yeah, this one's called Here Comes the Bear.
Tell us a little bit about that song.
So it's very much inspired by the UK rock band Royal Blood, also a drum and bass duo. We like to get heavy, and this is one of our songs where, there's no lyrics on the recorded song yet. It was mainly just to create this heavy vibe that we were so used to creating with Wings of Apollo.
And it's called
Here Comes the Bear.
Let's take a break and listen to Here Comes the Bear as we go to our sponsor.
Hey everyone, this is Jack Sharkey. I'm the Marketing and Technical Communications Manager at KEF, and you're listening to The Business Side of Music.
You're listening to the business side of music.
Hi everyone, I'm Larry Butler, and I want to send you a free digital copy of my new book, The Singer-Songwriter Rulebook, 101 Ways to Help You Improve Your Chances of Success. That's right. Everything you need to know to launch your career as a singer-songwriter, all based on my 40 years in the live performance arena, and believe me, I've seen it all. In my book, you'll find the 10 things you have to deal with before even thinking about becoming a singer-songwriter performer. You'll also learn about the 5 things every singer-songwriter can do this weekend to make their live show better. 5 things I can guarantee that you are not doing already. Plus, there's tips on songwriting and staging, photo and video shoots, publishing, merch, dozens of other topics, all written for people who don't particularly like to read. And again, it's free. Just go to the Business Side of Music website homepage and look for my book cover. Click on it, and a free digital copy of my book will be yours. I'm Larry Butler, and I approve of this message.
Wow, I just joined the Music Starts Here community. This is a truly hidden gem for anyone in the music business. Whether you live in Nashville or anywhere else in the world, Music Starts Here is like a GPS for your music career. This is the place to be if you want to get advice and direction from some seriously talented musical people who have been where you want to go. Music news, events, and a great big community with resources for artists, songwriters, musicians, studio and tech, along with music business advice from pros in the industry, all on one site. Make sure you get your free profile now. Go to www.musicstartshere.org. That's musicstartshere.org.
You're listening to the business side of music.
We're back in the studio. David Martin, Pat Graves. Mutual Groove is the duo, I guess we should say, because it's really, there's two of you here, so we're going to call it a duo. You guys are working on a new album. We're going to get to listen to some more of those cuts today. Obviously, we have the Flip a Day project. That is Pat's creation. I want to talk a little bit about that. But you're also working with, or I should say, you're the touring rhythm section for Stealing Oceans.
Yes.
How did that gig come along?
So David and I were actually playing the NEMA Awards, the Nashville Industry Music Awards in 2015.
Yep.
And I think we had just won best reggae fusion band or something like that.
That's something
Actually,
to talk about.
against Stealing Oceans. So we were in the same
really?
category as them, and we ended up beating them.
Yeah.
Sorry, Brian.
Sorry, Brian. After that, I was walking out the door, and Brian comes up to me. He just kind of grabs me by the shoulder. He goes, "You," and I was like,
I got to talk to you.
Yeah, he goes, "You." He goes, I want you to play with me. And I was like, well, cool, man. I'm Pat. And he was like, I'm Brian. I play for. I'm Stealing Oceans. Love your bass playing. I'd love to have you come jam. So we exchanged numbers, and he sent me some songs that he wanted me to learn. I learned them. David was doing his own thing, and
they had already had a drummer too.
Yeah, they had already had a drummer. So I went over and I jammed with Stealing Oceans. I haven't stopped playing with them since. And then once their drummer's spot opened up, I was like, dude, you got to get David in here. This is a perfect project. He would love and supply a great vibe for this group. And eventually it ended up working out.
Yeah.
So now you've been playing with them for almost 2 years.
2 years now, yeah.
2 years, yeah, dang.
Yeah, and it was cool because it was a different type of music than we were used to. We were used to playing the heavy rock and reggae and that kind of stuff. And this was more of the pop, hip-hop,
Yeah, I mean, it's
alternative.
a totally different avenue to go down.
Very polished.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we liked because the background of us jamming and listening to the Chili Peppers, it's like we never really had a genre because we would always just love to pull from anything. We would pull from vibes. That's really just what it is, just feelings. So it's a great project for us, yeah. And we actually been out on a few tours with them. Most recently, we just went out to San Diego actually and played Kaboo Music Festival, which was amazing. It was Imagine Dragons, Foo Fighters, Katy Perry, Earth, Wind and Fire. So to be able to be backstage in the artist lounge with all these people you grow up with, listening to, and just be able to talk to them, like Dean DeLeo from Stone Temple Pilots, this is awesome. And then it was just
Big Boy from Outkast.
Yeah, and the show went incredibly well. We got a lot of good reviews, and so they've given us a lot of awesome opportunities, and Pat's been able to showcase his flips. He does a flip pretty much every show, and that always gets people going.
So let's since we've segued into that, here's a good spot for Flip a Day. So you are a professional acrobat.
Yeah.
You've been doing this how long?
I've been flipping for 28 years. According to my mom, she was like, as soon as you turned 2, it was you were climbing up on stuff. You were trying to throw yourself end over end. And I remember the summer of 92, I was 4, and I saw the Olympics, and you had the Summer Olympics, and that was my first exposure to real acrobatics. And I remember just being locked. And so that winter, I was up in New York, my grandparents' house, and I taught myself how to do a backflip on my grandparents' bed, and I've just been addicted. And I was self-taught until 13, started training very seriously until about 18, competed and everything in gymnastics, got tendonitis in my rotator cuff, and realized that I didn't really care too much about the competitive aspect. I wanted to be better than myself. I didn't really care if I was better than someone or someone was better than me. I just wanted to master the art form of flipping.
You kept raising the bar for yourself.
Yes.
Which I think whether it's musically or it's something like gymnastics, it's very important.
Yeah, you always got to challenge yourself, push yourself in directions that,
And I think that especially holds true in Nashville. I've had this conversation before talking with artists. Los Angeles, the music scene's a lot different than it is in New York. And of course, New York's different than LA. Nashville is unique in its own right that artists help other artists.
Yes.
Musicians help other musicians. With that being said, you got to be at the top of your game because it's a very deep pool, but the talent here will basically just chew up and spit out if you're not holding your own. So you got to work at it.
Oh, yeah.
So musically, you've now incorporated this into Flip a Day, and how does that work?
Well, basically, I'll do all my flips and trick shots and whatever I film. My main goal is to put Mutual Groove music behind it. So that way.
And where can these be seen?
Instagram mainly. So Instagram @Flipaday is my handle. FLIPADAY.
Yeah, and then YouTube, there's some stuff up there, and
I'm about to launch a whole new YouTube movement as well. It's going to compile all 1,115 days of Flip-A-Day into one video.
Wow.
Well, it originally started too as, we had started hearing about just how important, this was back in the Wings of Apollo days, how important social media was and the following of that. And there was the app Vine, which was like a 6-second video app you could share. And he was just like, man, I know how to flip. Like, maybe I should just start posting every day to start getting some people. And then that turned into 1,115 days.
I originally thought I was only going to do it for a year. You can hear in day one of Flip-A-Day, it's like, my name is Pat Graves. I'm going to do a flip every day for a year. And that lasted 3 years.
He kept going.
New Year's resolution, that was just a little long.
We're in the studio with David Martin, Pat Graves, Mutual Groove.
Hi, this is Michelle Wright, and you're listening to The Business Side of Music.
You're listening to the business side of music.
Hey, it's Chris SD from Sync Songwriter. Imagine what it would be like getting your music into the latest TV shows, movies, or ads. Your songs would not only get exposure in front of millions of viewers, you'd get paid to do it and gain a reputation as the songwriter that you are. I've been showing songwriters, composers, and artists how to get their music into TV and film for over 15 years. Collectively, they have generated hundreds of thousands of dollars from licensing their music. Their music has been on networks such as HBO, Bravo, ABC, NBC, Netflix, and more. In films or trailers such as Predator, Annihilation, Christmas Chronicles, Professor Mac, and many others. So many songwriters upload their music to websites hoping to get discovered. Unfortunately, this almost never happens with the millions of songs out there competing for attention. I show you how to get your music heard by the people who can actually make it happen for you. When you start getting your music licensed, you automatically develop a reputation in the industry. This lets you get syncs over and over again. If you'd like to discover how to connect with the right people in music licensing, just click the Sync Songwriter logo on the Business Side of Music webpage, and I'll see you there.
You're listening to the business side of music.
David Martin, Pat Graves, Mutual Groove are in the studio with us today. Some really neat guys once you get to know them. I love what you guys are doing, not only with the Flip-A-Day project and working with Stealing Oceans, but just musically, sonically, where you guys are heading. What's the next thing? What's the next step now?
We were just talking about that.
Yeah, we were just talking about this. Well, I mean, I'm getting my own recording equipment because I'm living with my girlfriend now. I'm basically...
Does she know this yet?
Yes, she knows and approves.
Hey, honey, look what I got.
It's basically... I mean, we're just trying to create.
Well, we're kind of stripping down all the walls of the past years because, when you're in your 20s, Pat just turned 30, I'll be turning 30 next year, like, you learn so much and you hear so much from other people, like outside influences, and like, this is what you need to do to be successful, all that, or you're into a certain artist for a while. We're kind of just taking all that culmination and just go in and be like, me and you, just as individuals, what would we create? And like the stuff we've been coming up with is, I guess you could say, more funk based and heavy rock based again, but like
Earth, Wind and Fire inspired. There's those like kind of those very groove oriented.
Absolutely.
It's just very groove oriented, feel good, positive messages, a lot about the personal growth we've went through.
Yep.
We've both dealt with mental health our whole lives, pretty much, from anxiety to depression, and that's a huge part of our message and a huge part of our mission and what we write lyrics about. And that's kind of, there's no really, we're kind of just going for what we feel at this point, and I don't know what it's going to turn out to be, but I'm really excited just to create. Like, you go through phases as an artist. Sometimes, you want to just go out and play, you're not really feeling creative or whatever, but like right now we're just ready to create. So.
Yeah.
I think that's so cool what you just brought up, because my wife and I were just talking about this. Creative people have a tendency to be real tortured souls. And because of that, they're become their own worst enemies. I think we've all gone through that
Absolutely.
in this business. We talk about there's a creative aspect and there's the business side, and very rarely do those two parts of the brain connect when you're talking about, whether it's a painter or a songwriter or a dancer or whoever it is? I think you just really clicked on something here that I like. What you've been through, you're now creating a positive spin out of it, which is so important. Does that seem to help influence you musically?
Certainly.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, everything that you go through in your past, it helps accumulate who you are in this present moment. And so, hindsight's 2020. We've been able to look back and see how much we've grown. And that right there, looking where we've come from and where we are now, that right there in itself is inspiring. It's giving yourself a pat on the back, like, hey, we've been through some stuff, man, but we're still here and we're still kicking it. And we're, David and I are still here after 11 years of this.
Right.
It reminds me of the Eagles documentary where they say, like, when you're going through all that stuff, it just kind of feels so chaotic and you're just like, one thing happens and then it takes you here and you think it's bad. But then when you look back after all that time, it's like a finely crafted novel. You're like, oh, that happened in order to get me to this, meet this person or get to this experience.
You're writing that book and it's just many different chapters.
Certainly.
Yeah, and how it lays out musically.
Yeah, and just taking away expectations of what we want it to be and letting it happen. And at least that's kind of Mutual Groove. Our logo is the jellyfish, and that's where we got the jellyfish idea. It's like in shamanism, they believe that the jellyfish has no like way of moving, like its brain, it doesn't even move. It just relies on the currents to get the nutrients it needs to survive. Right. So it's literally just floating around. So that was kind of the attitude after being in the old band and trying to force our way into things, and then just being like, let's just go with the flow and put out a good vibe, and hopefully things will attract to us.
Having
and it's
faith
worked.
and acceptance in what's coming and where you're going.
What a novel approach and original.
Yeah.
Finally, for once. Yeah, and I think that's so important. Faith and acceptance. Those are two words that I think are very underutilized.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly. Agreed.
Yeah. Glad you guys are including that into your mission here. David Martin, Pat Graves, Mutual Groove. How do they find you?
Instagram, Mutual Groove, Facebook,
MutualGroove.com.
MutualGroove.com to see all the music we've worked on with different artists.
Yeah, there's over 30-something songs on there that we've played on.
Yep.
Just with all different artists.
Are you guys touring on your own? Or are you touring with Stealing Oceans or both?
We've toured. We've had some, like Mutual Groove has had some opening gigs for Stealing Oceans. Some shows it's kind of like a dual show for us, which is actually really cool because it's totally different dynamic.
And we get to play for like 4 hours every night.
It's great.
Very
and a lot
cool,
of what
yeah.
Mutual Groove sets are comprised of is, sometimes we have this thing called Join a Jam. We'll just take someone out of the audience. They may have never even played music before, but we'll give them like a tambourine. Just like, hey, just come up and just feel the vibe. See if you can keep that going.
Do they do it?
Yeah. It's awesome.
Some
and
people
you see some
they're
people
light.
freak out.
Yeah.
It's awesome. So it's a
You're
cool dynamic.
introducing them to a whole different aspect of
Exactly.
music.
Yeah.
That's so cool. David, Pat, thanks for being on the show.
Hey,
Absolutely.
grateful to be here. This is
Thank
awesome.
you for having us.
Don't forget to check out our affiliates, including Lab Canna, fine hemp products since 2014. Click on their link on our website for more information and how to order their product line. If you're interested in getting your music into film or television, click on the Sync Songwriter link on our website. Absolutely the best way to get your songs listened to by top TV and film music supervisors. This is how you can get your songs quickly licensed for your favorite TV shows and movies. Click on our website link to get a free digital copy of Larry Butler's new rule book for singers and songwriters, 101 Ways to Help Improve Your Chances of Success. Also, check out our other affiliate, Music Starts Here. You can find them at musicstartshere.org. Probably the best one-stop shop for the singer, songwriter, or aspiring musician who's relocating to Nashville or wants to. Last but not least, shameless plug for this podcast. Become a YouTube subscriber by going to the Business Side of Music page. You can hear all of our released episodes there. Also, check out our website at businesssideofmusic.com. Follow us on Facebook at the Business Side of Music Podcast and on Twitter at BizSideOfMusic.
The Business Side of Music is the creation of Tom Sabella and Tracy Snow and is produced by Bob Bender. The Business Side of Music is recorded at Music Dog Studios in Los Angeles, California and Nashville, Tennessee. Production sound design by Keith Stark. Voiceover and promo by Lisa Fuson.